He sold my grandmother's vintage emerald ring to buy his mistress a BMW, thinking I would never discover the truth. What he did not realize was that the insurance appraisal I had commissioned 6 months earlier would expose not only his theft, but an entire network of deception that would destroy everything he had built on lies. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning. When if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The moment of discovery arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, wrapped in the mundane routine of sorting through household mail. Elena Martinez stood in her kitchen, still wearing her silk pajamas and nursing her first cup of coffee, when she opened the envelope that would shatter her carefully constructed world. The insurance company's routine correspondence contained a single line that made her hands tremble. Claim adjustment. Notice. Emerald ring. Appraised value $47,000. Reported stolen by policyholder David Martinez on September 15th. Elena read the sentence 3 times before its implications crystallized in her mind. The ring had not been stolen by some anonymous burglar during a home invasion, as David had tearfully reported to both her and the police. The ring had been stolen by her husband of 12 years, sold to fund his double life, and now he was attempting to collect insurance money on top of the proceeds from the sale. The emerald ring had been her grandmother's most treasured possession, a symbol of resilience that had survived the Great Depression, World War II, and decades of economic uncertainty. Grandmother Rosa had worn it through every significant moment of her life, from her wedding day in 1943 to her final hospital stay in when she placed it on Elena's finger with shaking hands just weeks before her death. She had whispered words that now echoed with prophetic significance. "This ring will protect you when you need it most, Mija. It carries the strength of all the women who came before you." Elena had treasured the ring not for its monetary value, though the vintage emerald surrounded by Art Deco diamonds was indeed valuable, but for its emotional significance. The ring represented her connection to a lineage of strong women who had overcome impossible circumstances through intelligence, determination, and unwavering moral conviction. Rosa had worn it while building a successful catering business from nothing, while raising 4 children as a single mother after her husband died in Korea, while putting herself through night school to become a certified accountant at age 45. The ring had been Elena's talisman during her own challenging moments, when she started her marketing consultancy business, when she struggled through graduate school while working full-time, when she faced discrimination in corporate environments that questioned her competence because of her age and ethnicity. Wearing her grandmother's ring had connected her to the strength and wisdom of previous generations, reminding her that she carried within herself the DNA of survivors and achievers. Now that sacred connection had been severed by the man she had trusted with her heart, her home, and her financial security, David had not simply stolen a piece of jewelry. He had violated the memory of her grandmother and betrayed the trust that had taken 12 years to build. The insurance document in her hands represented more than fraud. It represented the complete destruction of everything she had believed about her marriage and her husband's character. Elena set down her coffee cup with deliberate precision, her mind already shifting from shock to strategic analysis. The insurance claim revealed that David had planned this theft weeks in advance, researching the ring's value, identifying potential buyers, and preparing false documentation to support an insurance fraud scheme. This level of premeditation suggested that the theft was not an impulsive decision born of financial desperation, but a calculated betrayal that demonstrated complete disregard for her emotional well-being. The implications extended beyond the ring itself. If David was capable of stealing her most precious possession and then lying to her face about its disappearance, what other deceptions might he be concealing? The insurance fraud suggested sophisticated criminal planning that likely involved other illegal activities or hidden financial arrangements that she had never suspected. Elena's relationship with David Martinez had begun 8 years earlier at a professional networking event in downtown Phoenix. She had been 32, recently promoted to senior marketing director at a respected advertising firm, and focused on building her career rather than finding romantic relationships. David had approached her during the cocktail reception, introducing himself as a real estate development consultant who specialized in commercial properties throughout the Southwest. Their initial conversation had impressed Elena with David's apparent knowledge of business trends, urban planning principles, and market analysis techniques that seemed to complement her own expertise in consumer behavior and marketing strategy. He spoke intelligently about demographic shifts, economic development patterns, and the intersection of public policy and private enterprise. His confidence was attractive without being arrogant, and his interest in her professional achievements seemed genuine rather than superficial. Over the following months, David had courted Elena with the same systematic approach that he claimed to apply to his business venture. He researched her interests, planned thoughtful dates that demonstrated attention to her preferences, and gradually integrated himself into her social and professional circle. He attended her company events, remembered details about her clients and projects, and offered insights that seemed to enhance her own understanding of market dynamics. The marriage proposal had come during a weekend trip to Sedona, presented with what appeared to be careful consideration of Elena's values and aspirations. David had spoken about building a partnership that would amplify both of their professional capabilities, about creating a foundation for shared success that would honor their individual achievements while multiplying their collective impact. The ring he offered was elegant but modest, chosen to reflect Elena's preference for meaningful gestures over ostentatious displays of wealth. Their wedding had been a reflection of Elena's desire for authenticity over extravagance. The ceremony took place in her grandmother's garden, surrounded by the roses and jasmine that Rosa had cultivated for 30 years. The guest list included family members, close friends, and professional colleagues who had supported Elena's career development. David's family had traveled from Colorado, where he claimed to have grown up in a middle-class household that valued education and hard work. The early years of marriage had seemed to validate Elena's decision to trust David with her heart and her future. He had appeared supportive of her career advancement, encouraging her to pursue challenging projects and celebrating her professional victory. When she decided to leave her corporate position to start her own marketing consultancy, David had offered both emotional support and practical assistance with business planning and financial projection. Elena's business had thrived under her leadership, growing from a one-person operation to a respected firm that served clients throughout the region. Her expertise in digital marketing, brand development, and consumer research had earned recognition from industry organizations and generated revenue that exceeded her previous corporate salary. The success had validated her decision to embrace entrepreneurship while providing financial security that allowed David to be more selective about his own project commitment. David's real estate consulting work had appeared successful as well, though Elena now realized that she had never examined his business operations with the same scrutiny that she applied to her own professional endeavors. He traveled frequently for client meetings, maintained an office in a prestigious downtown building, and spoke knowledgeably about development projects and investment opportunities. His income seemed substantial enough to support their comfortable lifestyle, though he had always been somewhat secretive about specific deals and financial arrangements. The marriage had provided Elena with emotional stability that enhanced her professional effectiveness and personal satisfaction. She had trusted David completely, sharing her financial information, business strategies, and family history without reservation. The decision to combine their resources and plan for a shared future had seemed natural and mutually beneficial, representing the kind of partnership that successful couples built through communication, trust, and shared value. Elena had incorporated David into her relationship with her grandmother, inviting him to family gatherings and encouraging Rosa to share stories about their family history and cultural tradition. David had appeared interested in learning about Elena's heritage, asking thoughtful questions about her grandmother's experiences, and expressing respect for the values that had shaped Elena's character. When Rosa began showing signs of age-related health decline, David had supported Elena's decision to become more involved in her grandmother's care. The period surrounding Rosa's final illness had tested the marriage in ways that Elena had interpreted as evidence of David's commitment and character. He had accompanied Elena to hospital visits, helped coordinate care arrangements, and provided emotional support during the difficult decisions that surrounded end-of-life planning. When Rosa died peacefully in her sleep, David had helped Elena organize the funeral arrangements and had spoken movingly about Rosa's influence on Elena's strength and integrity. The inheritance of Rosa's ring had been a deeply emotional moment that David had appeared to understand and respect. He had encouraged Elena to wear the ring daily as a connection to her grandmother's memory, had admired its vintage beauty, and had suggested that they have it appraised for insurance purposes to ensure its protection. The appraisal process had been David's suggestion, presented as responsible financial planning that would safeguard Elena's most precious possession. Elena now recognized that David's apparent sensitivity and support had been calculated manipulations designed to gain her complete trust, while positioning himself to exploit that trust for his own benefit. His interest in the ring's appraisal had not been motivated by concern for its protection, but by determination to establish its value for future theft. His emotional support during Rosa's illness and death had been performed rather than genuine, designed to deepen Elena's dependence on his presence and her willingness to share intimate details about her family and finance. Elena's success as an independent marketing consultant had been built on principles that would serve her well in the battle that was about to unfold. Her business philosophy emphasized thorough research, systematic documentation, and strategic planning that accounted for multiple contingencies and potential obstacles. These same skills that had made her professionally successful would become the foundation for exposing David's deception and protecting herself from his attempts at manipulation. The marketing consultancy had taught Elena to analyze complex systems, identify patterns that others missed, and develop comprehensive strategies for achieving specific objectives despite opposition and competition. Her work with clients had required her to investigate market dynamics, consumer behavior, and competitive landscapes with the precision of a detective and the strategic thinking of a military plan. She had learned to gather intelligence, verify information through multiple sources, and build compelling narratives supported by irrefutable evidence. Elena's client base included businesses across various industries, from technology startups to established retail chains, each requiring customized approaches that demonstrated her ability to adapt her methods to different contexts and challenges. Her reputation for delivering results had been built on her willingness to dig deeper than surface-level analysis, to question assumptions that others accepted without examination, and to identify opportunities that competitors had overlooked. The consulting work had also developed Elena's ability to remain calm under pressure while managing multiple complex projects simultaneously. She had learned to compartmentalize emotional responses to setbacks while maintaining focus on long-term objectives and strategic priorities. These skills had been essential when dealing with difficult clients, unreasonable deadlines, and competitive situations that required both tactical flexibility and strategic consistency. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Elena's approach to client relationships emphasized transparency, regular communication, and detailed documentation of all interactions and deliverables. She maintained comprehensive project files that included meeting notes, email correspondence, research findings, and progress reports that could withstand scrutiny from skeptical stakeholders or regulatory authorities. This systematic approach to record-keeping had become second nature, applied not only to professional situations, but to personal financial management and household administration. The business had required Elena to develop expertise in digital forensics and data analysis as marketing increasingly moved into online environments that generated massive amounts of behavioral data. She had learned to use sophisticated software tools for tracking website analytics, social media engagement, and consumer purchasing patterns. Her ability to analyze digital footprints and identify trends in online behavior had become one of her most valuable professional skills and a source of competitive advantage for her clients. Elena's educational background had prepared her for the analytical challenges that her consulting work demanded. Her undergraduate degree in psychology had provided understanding of human behavior and decision-making processes, while her MBA had developed her strategic thinking and financial analysis capability. She had also completed professional certifications in digital marketing, data analysis, and project management that enhanced her technical competencies and credibility with sophisticated clients. The combination of education, experience, and natural analytical ability had made Elena particularly skilled at identifying inconsistencies in complex information systems and detecting patterns that suggested deception or manipulation. Her work had frequently involved investigating discrepancies in client data, analyzing competitor claims that seemed too good to be true, and identifying market opportunities that required careful verification before investment of resources. Elena's professional network included attorneys, forensic accountants, private investigators and other specialists who supported her client work when projects required expertise beyond her own capability. She had developed relationships with professionals who specialized in uncovering fraud, analyzing financial irregularities, and building legal cases based on complex evidence. These relationships had been cultivated through years of mutual referrals and collaborative projects that had demonstrated her reliability and professional integrity. The financial success of Elena's consulting business had provided her with both economic independence and professional confidence that would prove crucial in the battle ahead. She was not financially dependent on David's income, had maintained separate business accounts that he could not access, and had built substantial savings that would allow her to pursue legal action without concern about immediate financial constraints. Elena's professional reputation had been built on her commitment to ethical business practices and her willingness to confront difficult truths, even when doing so created short-term challenges for her client. She had terminated relationships with clients who asked her to engage in deceptive marketing practices, had refused to endorse products or services that she believed would harm consumers, and had maintained professional standards that prioritized long-term integrity over immediate profit. These same ethical principles that had guided Elena's professional success would now be applied to exposing David's betrayal and protecting herself from further exploitation. She understood that the battle ahead would require the same systematic approach, thorough documentation and strategic planning that had made her business successful. The skills that had helped her clients overcome market challenges and competitive threats would now be used to hold her husband accountable for his criminal behavior and deceptive practice. Elena's response to discovering David's theft and insurance fraud demonstrated the same methodical approach that had made her professionally successful. Rather than confronting him immediately with emotional accusations, she began a systematic investigation designed to uncover the full scope of his deception and build an irrefutable case that would protect her interests and ensure appropriate consequences for his actions. The first step involved securing the physical and digital evidence that documented David's fraudulent activity. Elena photographed the insurance correspondence, made copies of all relevant documents, and began organizing a comprehensive file that would support legal action and insurance company investigation. Her professional experience with documentation standards ensured that her evidence collection would meet legal requirements and withstand challenges from David's potential defense attorney. Elena's investigation expanded to include analysis of their joint financial accounts, credit card statements, and investment records that might reveal other suspicious transactions or hidden assets. Her background in financial analysis allowed her to identify patterns and anomalies that might escape notice from less experienced observers. She began creating spreadsheets that tracked money flows, identified unusual expenditures, and highlighted discrepancies between David's reported income and their household spending pattern. The digital investigation required Elena to examine David's computer usage, email communications, and social media activity for evidence of the affair and other deceptive behavior. Her expertise in digital marketing had provided her with technical skills for accessing and analyzing electronic records that would support her case. She understood how to preserve digital evidence, extract metadata that would verify authenticity, and organize electronic information in formats that would be useful for legal proceedings. Elena's professional network proved invaluable for obtaining specialized assistance with aspects of the investigation that required expertise beyond her own capability. She contacted a private investigator who specialized in marital infidelity cases, seeking professional surveillance and investigation services that would document David's activities and relationships. She also consulted with a forensic accountant who could analyze their financial records for evidence of hidden assets, undisclosed income, or other financial irregularities. The investigation revealed that David's deception extended far beyond the theft of the ring and the insurance fraud. Elena discovered evidence of multiple affairs, hidden credit card accounts, and financial transactions that suggested a pattern of deceptive behavior that had persisted throughout their marriage. The systematic nature of his deception indicated sophisticated planning and complete disregard for Elena's welfare and their marital commitment. Elena's investigation also uncovered evidence that David's claimed success in real estate consulting was largely fabricated. His office lease was delinquent, his business accounts showed minimal activity, and several clients that he had claimed to serve did not appear to exist. The investigation suggested that David had been living primarily off Elena's income, while maintaining the facade of professional success through elaborate deception and financial manipulation. The discovery of David's comprehensive deception required Elena to reevaluate not only their marriage, but also her own judgment and decision-making processes. She began working with a therapist who specialized in helping victims of financial and emotional abuse understand the psychological dynamics that had made them vulnerable to exploitation. This therapeutic relationship provided Elena with emotional support while also helping her develop strategies for protecting herself from further manipulation. Elena's systematic approach to investigating David's deception demonstrated the same qualities that had made her professionally successful: thoroughness, attention to detail, strategic thinking, and persistence in the face of obstacles. The investigation required her to maintain emotional composure while processing deeply painful discoveries about the man she had trusted completely. Her ability to compartmentalize emotional responses while maintaining focus on practical objectives proved essential for building a strong case that would protect her interests and ensure appropriate consequences for David's actions. The investigation phase also required Elena to develop security measures that would protect her from potential retaliation or further financial exploitation while she gathered evidence and prepared for legal action. She changed passwords on all personal accounts, established new banking relationships that David could not access, and implemented physical security measures at her home and office. Her professional experience with risk management provided her with frameworks for assessing potential threats and developing appropriate protective responses. Elena's investigation revealed not only the extent of David's betrayal but also her own strength and capability for responding to crisis situations with intelligence and determination. The discovery of his deception had initially felt like complete destruction of everything she had believed about her marriage and her judgment. However, the investigation process had demonstrated that she possessed the skills and resources necessary to protect herself and hold David accountable for his actions. The foundation that Elena had built through her professional success, her commitment to ethical principles, and her systematic approach to problem-solving had prepared her for this battle in ways that she had never anticipated. The same qualities that had made her a successful entrepreneur would now be applied to exposing deception, protecting her interests, and ensuring that justice prevailed over manipulation and betrayal. As Elena concluded the initial phase of her investigation and began preparing for the confrontation that would expose David's crimes, she understood that the battle ahead would require every skill and resource that she had developed throughout her personal and professional life. The ring that David had stolen represented more than monetary value. It symbolized the strength and wisdom of the women who had come before her, and Elena was determined to honor their legacy by fighting for truth and justice with the same courage and intelligence that had defined her grandmother's generation. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reveal not only David's criminality but also Elena's own power to overcome betrayal through preparation, intelligence, and unwavering commitment to moral principle. The battle ahead would test every aspect of Elena's character and capability, but she was prepared to fight with the systematic determination that had made her professionally successful and the moral conviction that had been instilled by her grandmother's example of strength and integrity. Elena's investigation entered its second phase with the systematic examination of David's digital footprint, a process that would reveal layers of deception far more extensive than the theft of her grandmother's ring. Her expertise in digital marketing had equipped her with sophisticated understanding of data analysis, online behavior tracking, and electronic evidence preservation that would prove invaluable in uncovering the full scope of her husband's betrayal. The examination began with David's personal computer, which he had left unlocked during one of his frequent overnight trips that Elena now suspected were rendezvous with his mistress rather than legitimate business meetings. Elena approached the digital investigation with the same methodical precision that she applied to client data analysis, understanding that electronic evidence required careful handling to maintain its integrity and admissibility in potential legal proceedings. David's browser history revealed a pattern of visits to luxury car dealerships, jewelry appraisal websites, and online marketplaces that specialized in high-end vintage items. The timestamps indicated that he had been researching the ring's value for months before its disappearance, systematically gathering information about comparable pieces, potential buyers, and insurance valuation procedure. This evidence demonstrated premeditation that elevated the theft from impulsive misconduct to calculated criminal conspiracy. The email analysis proved even more revealing, exposing correspondence with multiple women that documented not just one affair but a systematic pattern of romantic deception that had persisted throughout their marriage. Elena discovered email accounts that David had concealed from her, maintained under variations of his name and associated with different contact information. These hidden accounts contained hundreds of messages that revealed a double life conducted with remarkable sophistication and complete disregard for their marital vow. One email thread particularly devastated Elena as she read David's communications with a woman named Vivian Stewart, a real estate agent from Scottsdale who appeared to be his primary romantic interest. The messages revealed that David had been promising Vivian a future together, describing Elena as an obstacle to his happiness rather than a beloved wife. He had told Vivian that his marriage was essentially over, that he was planning to file for divorce as soon as he could secure adequate financial resources to support their new life together. The correspondence with Vivian contained explicit discussions about the ring's sale and David's plan to use the proceeds as down payment for the BMW that Vivian had been coveting. David had shared photographs of the ring with Vivian, describing it as a family heirloom that would soon provide them with the resources they needed to begin their life together. The casual way that he discussed stealing Elena's most precious possession and converting it into a gift for his mistress demonstrated a level of callousness that Elena had never suspected in her husband. Further investigation revealed that David had been maintaining relationships with at least 3 other women simultaneously, each receiving different versions of his life story and different promises about their future together. To Sandra Chen, a restaurant manager in Tempe, he had presented himself as a successful real estate investor who was unhappily married but planning to divorce soon. To Maria Rodriguez, a nursing student in Tucson, he had claimed to be recently separated and working through property division issues that prevented him from making formal commitment. The most disturbing discovery involved Rebecca Harrison, a widowed mother of 2 who worked as a school administrator in Flagstaff. David had told Rebecca that he was a widower himself, claiming that Elena had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. He had been visiting Rebecca regularly during his supposed business trips, presenting himself as a grieving husband who was ready to find love again with someone who understood the pain of loss. Elena read dozens of messages where David expressed sympathy for Rebecca's struggles as a single mother and promised to provide financial support for her children's education. Each relationship had been carefully crafted to exploit the specific vulnerabilities and needs of the women involved. David had researched their backgrounds, identified their emotional and financial concerns, and positioned himself as the solution to their problems. His approach demonstrated sophisticated understanding of psychological manipulation and predatory behavior that extended far beyond simple infidelity. The financial implications of David's multiple relationships became clear as Elena analyzed credit card statements and bank records that she had previously trusted him to manage. She discovered charges for hotel rooms, restaurant meals, jewelry purchases, and other expenses that had been funding his extramarital activity. The total expenditures over the previous 2 years exceeded $30,000, money that had been diverted from their joint accounts and household budget to support David's deceptive lifestyle. Elena's investigation revealed that David had been using her successful business as collateral for credit applications that she had never authorized. He had opened multiple credit card accounts using their joint financial information, accumulated substantial debt that would become her legal responsibility, and had been planning to declare bankruptcy after liquidating their shared assets. The ring theft was merely one component of a comprehensive financial fraud scheme that would have left Elena responsible for debts she had never incurred while David disappeared with their accumulated wealth. The digital evidence also revealed David's systematic research into divorce law and asset protection strategies. His browser history showed extensive visits to legal websites that provided information about hiding assets, minimizing alimony obligations, and relocating to jurisdictions that would be favorable to his interests. Elena discovered that David had been consulting with attorneys in Colorado and Nevada, apparently planning to establish residency in states where divorce laws would be more advantageous to his position. Elena's professional experience with data analysis allowed her to recognize patterns in David's online behavior that would have escaped notice from less experienced investigators. The timing of his searches, the specific legal and financial topics he researched, and the correlation between his online activities and his real-world actions demonstrated a level of premeditation that would strengthen any legal case against him. The investigation also revealed David's attempts to research Elena's business operations and financial status, apparently seeking information that would help him claim a larger portion of her assets in divorce proceedings. He had been monitoring her email communications with clients, tracking her business income and expenses, and researching the valuation methods used for service-based businesses. This surveillance represented a violation of Elena's privacy and potentially illegal interference with her professional activities. Elena documented every aspect of her digital investigation with the same attention to detail that she applied to client research projects. She created comprehensive spreadsheets that tracked David's online activities, preserved screenshots of incriminating communications, and organized the evidence in formats that would be useful for legal proceedings and insurance company investigation. Her professional expertise in data management and presentation ensured that the evidence would be compelling and admissible. The emotional impact of discovering David's comprehensive deception was devastating, but Elena managed to maintain her investigative focus by treating the process as a professional assignment rather than a personal crisis. She compartmentalized her emotional responses while gathering evidence, understanding that emotional stability was essential for building a strong case that would protect her interests and ensure appropriate consequences for David's action. Elena's investigation required expertise beyond her own capabilities, leading her to activate the professional network that she had cultivated throughout her consulting career. Her relationships with attorneys, forensic accountants, private investigators, and other specialists would prove essential for building a comprehensive case that addressed both the criminal and civil aspects of David's deceptive behavior. The first specialist Elena contacted was Patricia Williams, a forensic accountant who had previously assisted Elena with client projects that involved financial irregularities and potential fraud. Patricia specialized in analyzing complex financial records, identifying hidden assets, and tracing money flows that involved deliberate deception and manipulation. Her expertise would be crucial for understanding the full scope of David's financial misconduct and ensuring that Elena's interests were protected in potential legal proceedings. Patricia's initial analysis of Elena's financial records confirmed the systematic nature of David's theft and fraud. The forensic examination revealed unauthorized transactions, hidden accounts, and financial obligations that David had incurred without Elena's knowledge or consent. Patricia estimated that David's financial misconduct had cost Elena more than $75,000 over the previous 3 years, including direct theft, unauthorized credit utilization, and lost investment opportunity. The forensic accounting analysis also revealed that David had been systematically underreporting his income and concealing business activities that generated revenue he had not disclosed to Elena. Patricia discovered bank accounts in Colorado and Nevada that contained deposits from unknown sources, suggesting that David had been conducting business activities or receiving payments that he had concealed from his wife. The hidden income would have significant implications for potential divorce proceedings and criminal charges related to tax evasion. Elena also engaged the services of Michael Torres, a private investigator who specialized in marital infidelity and fraud cases. Michael's experience with surveillance techniques, background investigations, and evidence gathering would provide Elena with professional documentation of David's activities and relationships. His investigation would focus on confirming David's romantic relationships, documenting his travel patterns, and gathering evidence that would support both criminal charges and civil litigation. Michael's surveillance of David revealed the extent of his deceptive activities and confirmed Elena's suspicions about his multiple relationships. The investigation documented David's regular visits to Vivian Stewart's apartment in Scottsdale, his overnight stays at hotels with various women during supposed business trips, and his use of the BMW purchased with proceeds from the ring sale for transportation to his romantic encounter. The private investigation also revealed that David had been misrepresenting his financial status to his romantic partners, promising them financial security and expensive gifts that he could not afford without stealing from Elena. Michael's investigation suggested that David had been using each relationship as a source of financial support while simultaneously extracting resources from his marriage to fund his deceptive lifestyle. Elena's attorney, Jennifer Martinez, brought extensive experience with complex divorce cases involving fraud, asset concealment, and criminal behavior. Jennifer specialized in representing clients who had been victimized by financially abusive spouses and understood the legal strategies necessary to protect Elena's interests while pursuing appropriate criminal charges against David. Jennifer's legal analysis revealed that David's actions constituted multiple felonies including theft, insurance fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. The systematic nature of his deception and the interstate elements of his financial crimes would likely result in federal charges that carried significant penalties including substantial prison sentences and restitution requirements. The legal strategy developed by Jennifer focused on both criminal prosecution and civil recovery, seeking to hold David accountable through the criminal justice system while also recovering Elena's financial losses and protecting her business assets. Jennifer coordinated with prosecutors and insurance investigators to ensure that Elena's interests were represented throughout the legal process. Elena also consulted with Dr. Rebecca Thompson, a psychologist who specialized in helping victims of financial and emotional abuse understand the psychological dynamics that had made them vulnerable to exploitation. Thompson's expertise would help Elena process the emotional trauma of discovering David's comprehensive deception, while also providing expert testimony about the psychological impact of his abusive behavior. Thompson's analysis revealed that David's behavior demonstrated characteristics of antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder, psychological conditions that explained his ability to maintain multiple deceptive relationships without apparent guilt or remorse. The psychological evaluation would be important for criminal sentencing and civil litigation, demonstrating the deliberate and predatory nature of David's actions. The therapeutic relationship with Dr. Thompson also provided Elena with emotional support and coping strategies that would help her maintain her psychological stability throughout the legal process. Thompson helped Elena understand that David's ability to deceive her so completely reflected his sophisticated manipulation skills rather than any deficiency in Elena's judgment or intelligence. Elena's consultation with insurance investigator Robert Chen revealed that David's attempted insurance fraud was part of a pattern of similar crimes that he had likely committed in other jurisdictions. Robert's investigation suggested that David had been using variations of the same insurance fraud scheme in Colorado and Nevada, potentially involving other stolen items and fabricated claims. The insurance investigation also revealed that David had been researching Elena's other valuable possessions, apparently planning additional thefts that would have been followed by fraudulent insurance claims. Robert's analysis suggested that the ring theft was merely the first phase of a comprehensive plan to liquidate Elena's assets through theft and insurance fraud. Elena's professional network provided her with access to expertise and resources that would have been unavailable to someone without her business connections and financial means. Her ability to engage qualified professionals demonstrated the importance of building and maintaining professional relationships that could provide support during crisis situations. The collaboration between Elena's professional team created a comprehensive approach to addressing David's crimes that maximized the likelihood of successful prosecution and civil recovery. The coordination between forensic accountants, private investigators, attorneys, and other specialists ensured that all aspects of David's deceptive behavior would be thoroughly documented and appropriately addressed through legal channels. Elena's experience managing complex client projects prepared her well for coordinating the professional team that was investigating David's crime. Her project management skills, communication abilities, and attention to detail ensured that the investigation remained focused and efficient while addressing all relevant aspects of David's criminal behavior. Elena approached the documentation of David's crimes with the same systematic methodology that had made her consulting business successful. Understanding that legal proceedings would require comprehensive evidence that could withstand challenges from defense attorneys, Elena created detailed records that would support both criminal prosecution and civil litigation. The documentation process began with Elena's creation of a comprehensive timeline that correlated David's activities with specific pieces of evidence. She used project management software to organize dates, events, and supporting documentation in a format that would be useful for legal proceedings and insurance investigation. The timeline demonstrated the premeditated nature of David's crimes and revealed patterns of behavior that supported charges of systematic fraud and theft. Elena's timeline included David's research into the ring's value, his communications with potential buyers, his romantic relationships with multiple women, his financial transactions using stolen or fraudulent funds, and his attempts to conceal evidence of his crime. The comprehensive chronology revealed the sophisticated planning that David had invested in his criminal activities and demonstrated that his actions were deliberate rather than impulsive. Each entry in the timeline was supported by multiple forms of evidence, including electronic communications, financial records, witness statements, and physical documentation. Elena understood that successful prosecution would require evidence that met strict legal standards for authenticity and admissibility, so she worked closely with her attorney to ensure that all documentation procedures followed appropriate protocol. Elena's documentation included detailed financial analysis that tracked every dollar that David had stolen or misappropriated. She created spreadsheets that identified specific transactions, calculated interest and opportunity costs associated with David's theft, and projected the long-term financial impact of his crimes on Elena's business and personal finance. The financial analysis would be crucial for determining restitution amounts and supporting civil litigation for damages. The documentation process also included Elena's systematic preservation of electronic evidence from David's computers, email accounts, and social media profile. Elena worked with a computer forensics specialist to ensure that digital evidence was properly extracted, authenticated, and preserved in formats that would be admissible in legal proceedings. The electronic evidence provided compelling proof of David's premeditation and systematic deception. Elena documented David's psychological manipulation tactics through analysis of his communications with his multiple romantic partners. She identified patterns of behavior that demonstrated his deliberate exploitation of women's emotional vulnerabilities and his systematic use of deception to extract financial and emotional resources. This analysis would support expert testimony about David's predatory behavior and its impact on his victims. The documentation included comprehensive background research on David's history that revealed previous incidents of deceptive behavior and financial misconduct. Elena's investigation uncovered evidence that David had been fired from previous employment for expense account fraud, had been involved in civil litigation related to business misconduct, and had a pattern of moving to new locations when his deceptive behavior was discovered. Elena's documentation process included detailed records of the emotional and psychological impact of David's crimes on her well-being and professional. She maintained journals that recorded her emotional responses to discovering his deception, documented the time and resources required to investigate his crimes, and calculated the opportunity costs associated with addressing his criminal behavior rather than focusing on her business development. The documentation also included comprehensive research into the legal precedents and statutory frameworks that would govern David's prosecution and Elena's civil recovery. Elena worked with her attorney to understand the specific elements required for successful prosecution and civil litigation, ensuring that her evidence collection addressed all relevant legal requirements. Elena's systematic approach to documentation reflected her understanding that the strength of her case would depend on the quality and comprehensiveness of her evidence. She treated the documentation process as a professional project that required the same attention to detail and strategic planning that she applied to client consulting engagement. The documentation process also included Elena's research into David's assets and financial holdings that could be recovered through civil litigation or criminal restitution proceedings. She worked with forensic accountants to identify bank accounts, investment holdings, and valuable possessions that David had acquired through his criminal activities and that could be seized to compensate Elena for her losses. Elena's documentation revealed the sophisticated nature of David's criminal enterprise and demonstrated that his actions were part of a comprehensive plan to defraud his wife while establishing new relationships based on stolen resources. The evidence would support multiple felony charges and substantial civil damages that would hold David accountable for the full scope of his criminal behavior. The strategic documentation process demonstrated Elena's transformation from victim to prosecutor, using her professional skills and resources to build a case that would ensure justice and protect other potential victims from David's predatory behavior. Her systematic approach to evidence gathering reflected the same qualities that had made her professionally successful and would ultimately lead to David's conviction and Elena's vindication. Elena's documentation process also included her coordination with law enforcement agencies and insurance investigators to ensure that all relevant evidence was properly shared and that her case supported broader investigations into David's criminal activity. Her cooperation with authorities demonstrated her commitment to justice that extended beyond her personal interest to include protection of other potential victims. The comprehensive documentation that Elena created would serve as the foundation for all subsequent legal proceedings and would demonstrate that her response to David's betrayal was measured, professional, and focused on achieving justice through appropriate legal channels rather than personal revenge or emotional retaliation. Elena's investigation revealed that David's criminal activities extended far beyond the theft of her ring and his multiple romantic relationships. Her systematic analysis of his communications and financial records uncovered evidence of a broader criminal network that involved other individuals and potentially violated federal laws related to interstate commerce and organized crime. The investigation revealed that David had been working with Marcus Webb, a jewelry fence based in Las Vegas, who specialized in purchasing and reselling stolen high-end items. Marcus had provided David with guidance about appraising valuable items, identifying potential buyers, and avoiding detection by law enforcement agencies. Their communications revealed a sophisticated understanding of criminal techniques and suggested that David had been involved in similar crimes for several years. Elena discovered that David had sold her grandmother's ring to Marcus for $28,000, significantly less than its appraised value of $47,000. Marcus had then resold the ring to a collector in California, who believed he was purchasing a legitimate estate piece. The transaction had been structured to avoid reporting requirements and had been conducted using methods designed to prevent tracing by law enforcement agencies. The investigation also revealed that David had been providing Marcus with information about other valuable items owned by Elena and her clients, apparently planning additional thefts that would have been processed through the same criminal network. Elena's business had provided David with access to wealthy clients who owned valuable art, jewelry, and collectibles that would have been attractive targets for theft and resale. Elena's analysis of David's travel patterns revealed regular trips to Las Vegas that corresponded with his communications with Marcus Webb. Hotel records and credit card transactions confirmed that David had been meeting with Marcus to conduct criminal business, suggesting an ongoing criminal relationship that extended over several years. The evidence would support federal charges related to interstate transportation of stolen goods and conspiracy to commit fraud. The investigation also uncovered David's relationship with Sandra Martinez, a corrupt insurance adjuster, who had been providing him with information about claim procedures and helping him structure fraudulent claims to avoid detection. Sandra had coached David on the documentation required to support theft claims and had provided him with insider knowledge about investigation procedures that would help him avoid prosecution. Elena discovered that Sandra Martinez had been involved in processing fraudulent claims for other members of David's criminal network, suggesting a systematic insurance fraud fraud scheme that had been operating for several years. The evidence would support federal charges related to mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to defraud insurance companies. David's communications revealed plans to expand his criminal activities to include identity theft and credit card fraud targeting Elena's business client. He had been collecting personal information about Elena's clients and had been researching methods for using their identities to obtain credit and make unauthorized purchases. The planned identity theft would have caused significant financial harm to Elena's clients and would have destroyed her professional reputation. The investigation revealed that David had been recruiting other individuals to participate in his criminal activities, offering them financial compensation for providing information about valuable items owned by their spouses, employers, or acquaintances. David's criminal network included several other individuals who had been stealing from their families and employers to supply Marcus Webb's illegal resale operation. Elena's investigation uncovered evidence that David had been planning to disappear once he had accumulated sufficient resources through his criminal activity. He had been researching methods for establishing new identities, had been investigating countries that did not have extradition treaties with the United States, and had been transferring money to offshore accounts that would be difficult for law enforcement to trace. The discovery of David's criminal network demonstrated that Elena had been married to someone whose criminal activities extended far beyond simple infidelity and theft. David had been operating as part of an organized criminal enterprise that had victimized numerous individuals and families, and Elena's ring had been merely one item in a systematic operation designed to steal and resell valuable property. Elena's investigation revealed that several of David's romantic partners had also been victimized by his criminal activities. Rebecca Harrison, the widowed school administrator, had been manipulated into providing David with access to valuable items owned by the school district. Maria Rodriguez had been recruited to provide information about valuable medical equipment owned by her employer. David had been systematically exploiting his romantic relationships to facilitate his criminal activity. The evidence of David's criminal network would strengthen Elena's legal case by demonstrating the systematic and predatory nature of his behavior. The involvement of multiple victims and the interstate nature of the criminal activities would support federal prosecution that carried more severe penalties than state-level charges. Elena's coordination with federal law enforcement agencies resulted in a broader investigation that ultimately led to the arrest and prosecution of multiple members of David's criminal network. Her evidence became crucial for prosecuting not only David, but also Marcus Webb, Sandra Martinez, and other individuals who had participated in the criminal enterprise. The revelation of David's criminal network demonstrated that Elena's methodical investigation had uncovered criminal activities that extended far beyond her personal victimization. Her professional skills and systematic approach to evidence gathering had contributed to dismantling a criminal organization that had been victimizing individuals and families for several years. Elena's discovery of the criminal network also revealed the importance of her decision to conduct a thorough investigation, rather than simply confronting David about the ring theft. Her comprehensive approach had uncovered evidence that would protect other potential victims and would result in appropriate criminal penalties for all members of the criminal organization. The investigation demonstrated Elena's transformation from victim to criminal investigator, using her professional skills and personal determination to uncover truth and ensure justice. Her systematic approach to evidence gathering and her coordination with law enforcement agencies had contributed to protecting other potential victims and holding criminals accountable for their actions. Elena's investigation of David's criminal network represented the culmination of her transformation from trusting wife to sophisticated investigator, demonstrating that her professional skills and personal integrity provided her with the tools necessary to confront complex criminal behavior and ensure that justice prevailed over deception. Elena understood that confronting David would require more than compelling evidence and legal support. The emotional and psychological preparation for exposing his comprehensive deception demanded the same strategic planning that she applied to complex business challenges. Her approach to psychological fortification reflected her commitment to maintaining professional composure while processing the profound personal betrayal that had shattered her understanding of their 12-year marriage. Working with Dr. Rebecca Thompson, Elena developed a comprehensive framework for managing the emotional trauma of David's betrayal while maintaining the clarity and focus necessary for effective legal action. Thompson's expertise in helping victims of financial and emotional abuse provided Elena with evidence-based strategies for processing her emotional responses without compromising her ability to pursue justice through appropriate legal channels. The therapeutic process revealed that Elena's initial shock and devastation were normal responses to discovering systematic deception from someone she had trusted completely. Thompson helped Elena understand that David's ability to maintain such elaborate deceptions reflected sophisticated manipulation skills rather than any deficiency in Elena's judgment or intelligence. This reframing allowed Elena to process her emotions without falling into self-blame or questioning her fundamental decision-making capability. Elena's psychological preparation included developing specific techniques for managing her emotional responses during interactions with David that would inevitably occur as the legal process unfolded. Thompson taught Elena mindfulness practices that would help her remain centered during stressful conversations, breathing techniques that would maintain her physiological calm under pressure, and cognitive strategies that would prevent David's manipulation attempts from undermining her resolve. The psychological fortification process also addressed Elena's concerns about her ability to trust her judgment in future relationships. Thompson helped Elena understand that David's deceptive behavior represented an extreme example of antisocial personality traits that were not typical of most individuals. The therapeutic work focused on helping Elena maintain her capacity for healthy relationships while developing enhanced awareness of manipulation tactics and warning signs of deceptive behavior. Elena's psychological preparation included extensive analysis of David's manipulation techniques and their psychological impact on his victim. Understanding the specific methods that David had used to maintain his deceptions helped Elena recognize that his success in deceiving her reflected his sophisticated criminal skills rather than her vulnerability or naivety. This understanding strengthened Elena's confidence in her ability to confront him effectively while protecting herself from further manipulation. Thompson's analysis revealed that Elena's professional success and strong family relationships had provided her with psychological resilience that would serve her well throughout the legal process. Elena's systematic approach to problem solving, her strong ethical foundation, and her supportive professional network created a psychological framework that could withstand the stress of confronting David's criminal behavior and pursuing justice through complex legal proceedings. The psychological preparation also addressed Elena's concerns about the impact of David's crimes on her professional reputation and business relationships. Thompson helped Elena develop strategies for communicating about the situation with clients and professional contacts in ways that would maintain her credibility while protecting her privacy. This preparation would prove crucial for maintaining her business operations throughout the legal process. Elena's therapeutic work included processing her grief over the loss of her marriage and her idealized vision of David's character. Thompson helped Elena understand that mourning these losses was a necessary part of healing, while also maintaining focus on the practical steps required to protect herself and ensure appropriate consequences for David's criminal behavior. The ability to process grief while maintaining strategic focus would become essential for Elena's success in the confrontation ahead. The psychological fortification process also included preparation for the possibility that David would attempt to manipulate Elena's emotions during their confrontation. Thompson helped Elena anticipate David's likely tactics, including attempts to minimize his actions, blame Elena for driving him to infidelity, express false remorse designed to elicit sympathy, and threaten retaliation if Elena pursued legal action. This preparation would help Elena maintain her emotional equilibrium, regardless of David's response to being confronted with evidence of his crimes. Elena's psychological preparation included developing a clear understanding of her goals for the confrontation with David, rather than seeking emotional satisfaction or attempting to punish David through personal retaliation. Elena focused on the practical objectives of exposing his crimes, protecting herself from further victimization, and ensuring that appropriate legal consequences followed from his criminal behavior. This clarity of purpose would guide Elena's actions throughout the confrontation process. The therapeutic relationship also provided Elena with ongoing support throughout the investigation and legal process. Thompson's availability for consultation during critical moments would help Elena maintain her psychological stability while managing the stress and uncertainty that inevitably accompanied complex legal proceedings. This professional support system would prove invaluable for sustaining Elena's resolve throughout the extended process of holding David accountable. Elena's psychological preparation demonstrated her understanding that successful confrontation of David's criminal behavior required more than legal strategy and compelling evidence. The emotional and psychological dimensions of exposing systematic deception demanded the same careful planning and professional support that Elena applied to other complex challenges in her personal and professional life. Elena's collaboration with attorney Jennifer Martinez resulted in the development of a comprehensive legal strategy that addressed both the criminal and civil aspects of David's fraudulent behavior. Strategy reflected Elena's systematic approach to complex problem-solving while incorporating Jennifer's extensive experience with cases involving marital fraud, asset concealment, and financial abuse. The legal strategy began with a careful analysis of the evidence that Elena had gathered through her investigation. Jennifer reviewed the digital forensics evidence, financial records, witness statements, and documentation of David's criminal network to determine which charges would be most appropriate and which would have the highest likelihood of successful prosecution. This analysis revealed that David's actions supported multiple felony charges including theft, insurance fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Jennifer's strategic approach emphasized coordination between criminal prosecution and civil litigation to maximize Elena's recovery, while ensuring that David faced appropriate criminal penalties. The strategy included working with federal prosecutors who had jurisdiction over the interstate elements of David's criminal activities, coordinating with insurance investigators who were pursuing the fraud claim, and developing civil litigation that would recover Elena's financial losses while protecting her business assets. The legal strategy also addressed the timing and sequence of various legal actions to maximize their effectiveness and minimize David's opportunities to conceal assets or flee the jurisdiction. Jennifer coordinated with law enforcement agencies to ensure that criminal charges would be filed before David became aware of the investigation, preventing him from destroying evidence or transferring assets to jurisdictions beyond the reach of American court. Elena's legal team developed a comprehensive asset recovery strategy that identified all of David's known holdings and developed procedures for freezing these assets, pending the outcome of criminal and civil proceedings. This strategy included working with forensic accountants to trace hidden assets, coordinating with banks to freeze accounts that contained stolen funds, and obtaining court orders that would prevent David from disposing of valuable property that could be used to compensate Elena for her loss. The legal strategy included extensive preparation for Elena's testimony in both criminal and civil proceedings. Jennifer worked with Elena to review her evidence, practice her testimony, and develop responses to anticipated challenges from David's defense attorney. This preparation ensured that Elena's testimony would be compelling and credible, while also protecting her from aggressive cross-examination tactics that might be employed by David's legal representation. Jennifer's strategy also included coordination with prosecutors representing other victims of David's criminal network. The comprehensive nature of David's criminal activities meant that multiple jurisdictions and multiple victims were involved in related criminal cases. Jennifer's coordination with other attorneys and prosecutors ensured that Elena's case would be strengthened by evidence from other investigations, while also supporting the broader effort to dismantle David's criminal organization. The legal strategy addressed the media attention that might accompany high-profile criminal cases involving sophisticated fraud schemes. Jennifer developed protocols for managing media inquiries and protecting Elena's privacy while also ensuring that public awareness of David's crimes would help identify additional victims and prevent future criminal activity. This media strategy balanced Elena's desire for privacy with the public interest in exposing sophisticated criminal schemes. Elena's legal team also developed contingency plans for various possible outcomes of the criminal prosecution. These plans included strategies for pursuing civil litigation if criminal prosecution was unsuccessful, procedures for recovering assets if David attempted to flee the jurisdiction, and methods for protecting Elena's business operations if the legal proceedings extended over a lengthy period. This comprehensive planning reflected Elena's systematic approach to risk management and strategic preparation. The legal strategy included extensive research into precedent cases involving similar criminal behavior and financial fraud. Jennifer's analysis of previous cases helped establish benchmarks for potential criminal sentences and civil damages, while also identifying legal arguments that had been successful in similar situations. This research provided the foundation for developing arguments that would maximize the likelihood of successful prosecution and substantial recovery. Jennifer's strategy also addressed the psychological and emotional support that Elena would need throughout the legal process. The attorney coordinated with Dr. Thompson and other members of Elena's support team to ensure that Elena's psychological well-being would be protected throughout the extended legal proceeding. This holistic approach to legal representation reflected Jennifer's understanding that successful legal outcomes required attention to both legal and personal factors. The legal strategy development process demonstrated Elena's transformation from victim to prosecutor, working collaboratively with professional experts to develop comprehensive approaches to seeking justice and protecting her interests. Elena's business experience with strategic planning and project management provided valuable contributions to the legal strategy development, while also ensuring that she remained actively involved in decisions affecting her future. Elena's legal preparation also included extensive education about the criminal justice system and civil litigation procedures that would govern her case. Jennifer provided Elena with detailed explanations of legal processes, timelines, and potential outcomes to ensure that Elena's expectations were realistic and that she was prepared for the complexities and uncertainties that characterize legal proceedings. The comprehensive legal strategy reflected Elena's commitment to pursuing justice through appropriate legal channels, while also protecting her financial interests and professional reputation. The strategy demonstrated that systematic preparation and professional collaboration could create powerful tools for holding criminals accountable while protecting victims from further harm. Elena's approach to organizing and presenting the evidence against David reflected her professional expertise in data management and strategic communication, understanding that the strength of her case would depend not only on the quality of evidence, but also on its effective presentation to prosecutors, judges, and juries. Elena developed a comprehensive framework for organizing complex information in formats that would be compelling and accessible to various audiences. The evidence organization process began with Elena's creation of a master database that cataloged every piece of evidence according to multiple classification systems. Each item was categorized by type of evidence, relevance to specific criminal charges, chronological order, and relationship to other pieces of evidence. This systematic organization ensured that prosecutors and attorneys could quickly locate relevant evidence and understand its significance within the broader pattern of David's criminal behavior. Elena's database included detailed metadata for each piece of evidence that documented its source, authentication procedures, and chain of custody requirements. Her professional experience with data management and quality control ensured that the evidence would meet strict legal standards for admissibility and authenticity. This attention to detail would prove crucial for preventing challenges to the evidence that might undermine the prosecution's case. The evidence presentation framework included the development of visual aids and summary documents that would help prosecutors and juries understand the complexity of David's criminal scheme. Elena worked with graphic designers and data visualization specialists to create charts, timelines, and relationship diagrams that illustrated the connections between David's various criminal activities and demonstrated the systematic nature of his deceptive behavior. Elena's presentation framework included the creation of executive summaries that provided clear overviews of the evidence for different audiences, including prosecutors, insurance investigators, and civil litigation attorneys. These summaries highlighted the most compelling evidence, while also providing roadmaps to more detailed documentation that supported specific legal arguments. The summaries reflected Elena's business communication skills and her understanding of how to present complex information to busy professionals. The evidence organization included comprehensive financial analysis that tracked the flow of stolen funds through David's various accounts and transactions. Elena worked with forensic accountants to create detailed financial models that demonstrated how David had used Elena's money to fund his criminal activities and support his multiple romantic relationships. These financial models would be crucial for determining restitution amounts and supporting civil litigation for damages. Elena's presentation framework also included the preparation of witness statements and testimony that would support the documentary evidence. She worked with her attorney to identify key witnesses, including David's romantic partners, members of his criminal network, and professional experts who could provide context for the evidence. Elena's systematic approach to witness preparation ensured that testimony would be coordinated and mutually supporting. The evidence organization process included extensive cross-referencing that demonstrated the connections between different aspects of David's criminal behavior. Elena created detailed indices that showed how David's theft of the ring related to his insurance fraud scheme, how his romantic relationships facilitated his criminal activities, and how his involvement with the criminal network enabled his sophisticated deception. This cross-referencing would help prosecutors present a comprehensive case that demonstrated the full scope of David's criminal enterprise. Elena's presentation framework included the development of technology platforms that would allow real-time access to evidence during legal proceedings. She worked with legal technology specialists to create secure databases that prosecutors could access during trials and hearings, ensuring that relevant evidence would be immediately available to support legal arguments and respond to defense challenges. The evidence organization also included extensive documentation of the impact of David's crimes on Elena and other victims. Elena created detailed records of financial losses, emotional trauma, and professional disruption that would support arguments for substantial restitution and civil damage. This victim impact documentation would be crucial for ensuring that criminal sentences and civil judgments reflected the true cost of David's criminal behavior. Elena's presentation framework included preparation for potential challenges to the evidence from David's defense attorney. She worked with her legal team to anticipate arguments that the defense might raise and develop responses that would protect the integrity of her evidence. This preparation included creating backup documentation, alternative authentication procedures, and expert testimony that would support the admissibility of key evidence. The evidence organization process also included coordination with law enforcement agencies and insurance investigators who were conducting parallel investigations. Elena's systematic approach to evidence management facilitated information sharing between different investigative teams, while also ensuring that her evidence collection did not interfere with official law enforcement activity. Elena's evidence presentation framework demonstrated her transformation of raw investigative findings into powerful legal tools that could achieve justice and protect other potential victims. Her business experience with project management and strategic communication provided the foundation for creating evidence presentation systems that would maximize the effectiveness of legal proceedings. The comprehensive evidence organization reflected Elena's understanding that successful prosecution of complex criminal cases required more than compelling evidence. The systematic presentation of evidence in formats that were accessible to legal professionals and persuasive to juries was essential for translating investigative findings into successful legal outcomes. Elena's evidence framework also included provisions for ongoing updates and modifications as additional evidence became available through continued investigation or law enforcement activity. Her systematic approach to evidence management ensured that new information could be integrated seamlessly into existing presentation formats without disrupting the overall organization of her case. Elena's approach to timing the confrontation with David and coordinating various legal actions reflected her business experience with complex project management and her understanding that successful outcomes required careful orchestration of multiple moving parts. The strategic timing plan that Elena developed with her legal team ensured that each action would maximize its impact while minimizing David's opportunities to escape consequences or cause additional harm. The timing strategy began with extensive analysis of David's schedule and travel patterns to identify the optimal moment for initiating legal action. Elena's investigation had revealed that David maintained regular routines that could be predicted, including his weekly visits to Vivian Stewart and his monthly trips to Las Vegas for meetings with Marcus Webb. This knowledge allowed Elena's team to plan their actions during periods when David would be available for service of legal documents and less likely to flee the jurisdiction. Elena's coordination plan included simultaneous execution of multiple legal actions to prevent David from responding to one action by taking steps that would undermine others. The plan included coordination between criminal arrests, civil asset freezing, insurance fraud investigations, and service of divorce papers to ensure that David would face immediate consequences across all aspects of his criminal behavior before he could mount any defensive response. The strategic timing also considered the schedules and availability of key witnesses, including David's romantic partners and members of his criminal network. Elena's team coordinated with law enforcement agencies to ensure that witness interviews and arrests of criminal associates would occur in sequence that would maximize the information gathered while preventing suspects from coordinating their responses or destroying evidence. Elena's timing strategy included careful consideration of media coverage and public relations implications that might affect the legal proceeding. The plan included provisions for managing information released to ensure that public awareness of David's crimes would help identify additional victims without compromising ongoing investigations or prejudicing potential jury pools. This media strategy balanced Elena's desire for privacy with the public interest in exposing sophisticated criminal schemes. The coordination plan also addressed the timing of financial asset recovery actions to maximize Elena's ability to recover her losses while preventing David from transferring assets to offshore accounts or other jurisdictions beyond the reach of American courts. Elena worked with forensic accountants and asset recovery specialists to identify optimal timing for freezing accounts and seizing valuable property that could be used to compensate her for financial losses. Elena's strategic timing included coordination with insurance company investigations to ensure that her cooperation with law enforcement would not compromise her ability to recover insurance benefits for the stolen ring. The timing plan balanced the need for criminal prosecution with Elena's financial interests in recovering the full value of her grandmother's ring through insurance claims or asset recovery procedure. The coordination plan included extensive communication protocols that would ensure all members of Elena's professional team remained informed about developments and timing changes as the legal process unfolded. Elena's business experience with managing complex projects involving multiple stakeholders provided the foundation for developing communication systems that would maintain coordination throughout the extended legal process. Elena's timing strategy also considered the psychological and emotional factors that would affect her ability to maintain her resolve throughout the confrontation process. The plan included provisions for psychological support and stress management that would help Elena maintain her effectiveness as the primary witness and victim advocate throughout lengthy legal proceedings. The strategic timing included careful analysis of legal calendars and court schedules to ensure that Elena's case would receive appropriate attention from prosecutors and judges. Elena's legal team coordinated with court administrators to identify optimal timing for filing actions and scheduling hearings that would maximize the likelihood of favorable outcomes while minimizing delays that might benefit David's defense strategy. Elena's coordination plan also included contingency procedures for responding to unexpected developments or changes in David's behavior that might require modifications to the timing strategy. These contingency plans reflected Elena's systematic approach to risk management and her understanding that complex legal proceedings required flexibility and adaptability while maintaining focus on core objectives. The timing strategy included coordination with victim advocacy organizations and support services that could provide assistance to other victims of David's criminal network. Elena's plan balanced her personal interests in seeking justice with broader social interests in protecting other potential victims and supporting criminal justice system efforts to combat sophisticated fraud schemes. Elena's strategic planning also included consideration of the long-term implications of various timing decisions for her personal and professional recovery from David's betrayal. The plan included provisions for protecting her business operations, maintaining her professional relationships, and preserving her privacy while pursuing justice through public legal proceedings. The comprehensive timing and coordination plan demonstrated Elena's transformation from victim to strategic prosecutor, applying her professional skills and systematic thinking to develop approaches that would maximize the likelihood of successful legal outcomes while protecting her interests and supporting broader criminal justice objectives. Elena's timing strategy reflected her understanding that successful confrontation of sophisticated criminal behavior required more than compelling evidence and competent legal representation. The strategic coordination of multiple legal actions, effective management of public relations implications, and careful attention to psychological and financial factors were essential for achieving justice while protecting victims from further harm. The strategic planning process also demonstrated Elena's growth from someone who had been systematically deceived to someone who possessed the skills and determination necessary to expose complex criminal schemes and hold sophisticated criminals accountable for their actions. Her systematic approach to timing and coordination would prove crucial for the successful resolution of her case and the protection of other potential victims. Elena understood that her first direct confrontation with David would establish the tone and strategic framework for all subsequent interactions. Drawing upon her extensive business experience with managing difficult negotiations and high-stakes client presentations, Elena designed a controlled environment that would maximize her advantages while minimizing David's opportunities for manipulation. The confrontation would occur in Elena's home office, a space that provided several strategic advantages for the encounter. The office contained sophisticated recording equipment that Elena used for client consultations, ensuring that every word of the conversation would be documented for potential legal proceedings. The familiar environment would help Elena maintain her psychological composure while placing David in a setting where he would be constantly reminded of Elena's professional competence and financial independence. Elena's preparation included careful consideration of the physical arrangement of the office space to create psychological advantages during the confrontation. She positioned her chair behind her executive desk, establishing a position of authority that would reinforce her role as the interrogator rather than the victim. David would be seated in a lower chair positioned directly across from Elena, creating a dynamic that would emphasize his subordinate position and Elena's control over the proceeding. The timing of the confrontation was strategically chosen to coincide with David's return from what Elena knew was a romantic weekend with Vivian Stewart in Scottsdale. Elena's investigation had revealed that David typically returned from these trips in an emotionally elevated state, confident about his deceptive abilities and often careless about maintaining his fabricated explanations for his absence. This timing would maximize the likelihood that David would make statements that would incriminate him further. Elena's preparation included detailed scripting of her opening statements and anticipated responses to David's likely defensive tactics. Her business experience with negotiating complex contracts and managing difficult client relationships had taught her the importance of maintaining control over conversation flow while appearing calm and reasonable. The scripted approach would help Elena maintain her strategic focus, regardless of David's emotional responses or manipulation attempts. The controlled environment also included strategic placement of key pieces of evidence that would be visible to David throughout the confrontation. Lenas arranged copies of the insurance documentation, photographs of the stolen ring, and printouts of David's communications with Vivian Stewart in locations where David would notice them but would not be able to examine them closely. This evidence placement would create psychological pressure while maintaining Elena's strategic advantage. Elena's office setup included video recording equipment that would capture both David's verbal statements and his physical reactions to being confronted with evidence of his crime. The video documentation would provide valuable evidence for legal proceedings while also protecting Elena from potential claims that she had misrepresented David's responses or had engaged in inappropriate confrontation tactics. The controlled environment preparation also included coordination with Elena's security consultant to ensure that appropriate safety measures were in place during the confrontation. While Elena did not anticipate physical violence from David, her investigation had revealed aspects of his personality and criminal associations that suggested caution was appropriate. The security measures would provide protection while remaining discreet enough to avoid disrupting the confrontation process. Elena's preparation included detailed planning for managing the emotional dynamics of the confrontation to maintain her strategic advantages throughout the encounter. Her therapeutic work with Dr. Thompson had provided Elena with specific techniques for managing her emotional responses to David's likely attempts at manipulation, deflection, and false expressions of remorse. These techniques would help Elena maintain her professional composure regardless of David's tactical responses. The controlled environment also included preparation for documenting David's reactions to specific pieces of evidence in ways that would support subsequent legal proceedings. Elena planned to present evidence in a sequence that would maximize its psychological impact while also creating opportunities for David to make additional incriminating statements. The strategic evidence presentation would help build the strongest possible case for criminal prosecution and civil litigation. Elena's office preparation included removal of any items that might provide David with information about Elena's investigation activities or legal strategy. Her systematic approach to information security ensured that David would not gain access to details about Elena's evidence collection, witness interviews, or coordination with law enforcement agencies. This information control would maintain Elena's strategic advantages throughout the legal process. The controlled environment setup also included provisions for ending the confrontation if David became evasive, threatening, or uncooperative. Elena developed specific protocols for terminating the encounter while maintaining her safety and protecting the evidence that she had gathered. These contingency plans reflected Elena's systematic approach to risk management and strategic planning. Elena's preparation for the controlled environment demonstrated her transformation from victim to prosecutor, applying her professional skills and business experience to create optimal conditions for exposing David's criminal behavior while protecting her own interests. The systematic approach to environment design reflected Elena's understanding that successful confrontation required the same careful planning that characterized her most important business presentation. Elena's opening statement was designed to immediately establish her knowledge of David's criminal activities while creating opportunities for him to make additional incriminating statements. Her approach balanced directness with strategic restraint, revealing enough information to demonstrate her comprehensive understanding of his crimes while withholding specific details that might allow him to develop defensive responses. When David entered the office for what he believed was a routine discussion about household finances, Elena's opening words immediately shifted the dynamic of their relationship. She began by stating that she had discovered his theft of her grandmother's ring and his fraudulent insurance claim, watching carefully as David's facial expressions revealed his shock at being confronted with evidence of his criminal behavior.
David's initial response followed the predictable pattern of denial and deflection that Elena had anticipated based on her research into criminal psychology and her consultation with Dr. Thompson. He immediately claimed that Elena was mistaken about the circumstances surrounding the ring's disappearance, suggesting that she was confused about the timeline of events or misinterpreting the insurance documentation that she had received. Elena responded to David's denial by presenting the first piece of concrete evidence, the insurance company's correspondence that documented his fraudulent claim and provided specific details about the ring's description and his reported timeline for the theft. The precision of this documentation immediately undermined David's attempts at denial and forced him to acknowledge that Elena possessed detailed knowledge of his criminal activity.
David's response to being confronted with the insurance evidence revealed his criminal sophistication and his understanding that complete denial was no longer viable. He shifted his strategy to minimization and justification, claiming that he had been forced to sell the ring because of financial pressures that Elena did not understand. This response demonstrated the calculated nature of his criminal behavior while also providing additional evidence of his willingness to steal from his wife. Elena's strategic response to David's justification attempts involved presenting additional evidence that demonstrated the premeditated nature of his crimes. She revealed her knowledge of his months-long research into the ring's value, his communications with potential buyers, and his systematic planning for the insurance fraud scheme. This evidence presentation forced David to acknowledge that his actions were deliberate rather than impulsive responses to financial pressure. The confrontation revealed David's manipulation tactics as he attempted to shift blame to Elena for creating conditions that he claimed had driven him to criminal behavior. He accused Elena of being too focused on her business to pay attention to their relationship, suggested that her emotional distance had forced him to seek companionship elsewhere, and claimed that financial pressure from Elena's business expenses had necessitated his desperate action. Elena's response to David's blame-shifting tactics demonstrated her psychological preparation and her understanding of manipulation techniques. She remained calm and focused while systematically refuting each of David's justifications with specific evidence that contradicted his claim. Her professional composure prevented David from gaining emotional leverage while maintaining her strategic control over the confrontation. David's recognition that his standard manipulation tactics were ineffective against Elena's prepared responses led him to attempt more sophisticated deception strategy. He began expressing what appeared to be genuine remorse for his actions, claiming that he had been planning to confess everything to Elena and had been struggling with guilt about his criminal behavior. This false remorse was designed to elicit Elena's sympathy and potentially reduce the consequences of his actions. Elena's response to David's expressions of false remorse involved presenting evidence that contradicted his claims of guilt and planning to confess. She revealed her knowledge of his ongoing criminal activities, his continued relationship with Vivian Stewart, and his involvement with the broader criminal network that included Marcus Webb and Sandra Martinez. This evidence demonstrated that David's expressions of remorse were tactical rather than genuine. The strategic opening phase of the confrontation achieved Elena's primary objectives of establishing her comprehensive knowledge of David's criminal activities, while creating opportunities for him to make additional incriminating statements. David's responses provided valuable evidence for legal proceedings, while also revealing the extent of his manipulation skills and his continued willingness to deceive even when confronted with overwhelming evidence. Elena's management of the opening phase demonstrated her successful application of business negotiation skills to personal crisis management. Her ability to maintain strategic control while processing emotionally devastating information reflected the psychological preparation and professional expertise that would serve her throughout the extended legal process ahead. David's responses during the opening phase also revealed important information about his criminal network and financial activities that would prove valuable for law enforcement investigation. His attempts to minimize his involvement with other criminals inadvertently provided Elena with additional evidence about the scope and structure of the criminal enterprise that had facilitated his crime. The opening phase established the framework for subsequent interactions between Elena and David, demonstrating that Elena possessed both the evidence and the strategic capability necessary to hold him accountable for his criminal behavior. David's recognition of Elena's advantages would influence his future responses, and would ultimately contribute to the successful resolution of her case. Elena's systematic presentation of evidence followed a carefully planned sequence designed to build psychological pressure while creating multiple opportunities for David to make incriminating statements. Her approach reflected her business experience with presenting complex information to skeptical audiences, while maintaining narrative coherence and emotional impact. The evidence presentation began with Elena's revelation of her knowledge about David's relationship with Vivian Stewart, including specific details about their communications and David's promises to purchase expensive gifts using proceeds from stolen property. Elena presented printouts of email communications that documented David's emotional manipulation of Vivian and his systematic planning for their future together, using Elena's financial resources. David's response to the evidence about Vivian revealed his continued willingness to prioritize his criminal relationships over his marriage to Elena. Rather than expressing remorse for his infidelity, David attempted to justify his relationship with Vivian by claiming that Elena's focus on her business had created emotional distance that forced him to seek companionship elsewhere. This response provided additional evidence of David's manipulative character and his inability to accept responsibility for his actions. Elena's presentation of evidence about David's financial crimes included detailed documentation of unauthorized credit card usage, hidden bank accounts, and systematic theft of household funds to support his criminal activity. The financial evidence demonstrated that David had been stealing from Elena for years, while maintaining the facade of contributing to their household expenses through his supposed real estate consulting income. The presentation of financial evidence created significant psychological pressure as David recognized the extent of Elena's knowledge about his criminal activity. His attempts to explain the unauthorized financial transactions revealed additional information about his criminal network and his sophisticated understanding of fraud techniques. These explanations provided valuable evidence for law enforcement investigations, while also demonstrating David's continued criminality. Elena's evidence presentation included documentation of David's involvement with Marcus Webb and the criminal network that facilitated the theft and resale of stolen property. The presentation revealed David's systematic research into criminal techniques, his coordination with other criminals, and his planning for additional thefts targeting Elena's clients and business associates. This evidence demonstrated that David's criminal activities extended far beyond simple marital infidelity or financial pressure. David's response to evidence about his criminal network revealed his understanding that his actions constituted serious felonies with significant potential penalties. His attempts to minimize his involvement with Marcus Webb and other criminals inadvertently provided Elena with additional information about the structure and activities of the criminal organization. These statements would prove valuable for federal prosecutors investigating the interstate criminal enterprise. The evidence presentation sequence included Elena's revelation of her knowledge about David's multiple romantic relationships and his systematic deception of women who believed they were in exclusive relationships with him. Elena presented documentation showing David's manipulation of Rebecca Harrison, Sandra Chen, and Maria Rodriguez, demonstrating his predatory behavior and his willingness to exploit vulnerable individuals for financial and emotional resources. David's responses to evidence about his multiple relationships revealed his lack of empathy for the women he had victimized, and his continued focus on minimizing consequences, rather than acknowledging the harm he had caused. His explanations provided additional evidence about his manipulation techniques, while also revealing information about other potential victims who might not yet be aware of his deceptive behavior. Elena's systematic evidence presentation included documentation of David's attempts to research Elena's business operations and client relationships for potential criminal exploitation. The evidence revealed David's systematic violation of Elena's privacy and his planning for identity theft and financial fraud targeting her professional network. This evidence demonstrated the comprehensive nature of David's criminal planning and his willingness to destroy Elena's professional reputation. The evidence presentation sequence achieved Elena's strategic objectives of demonstrating her comprehensive knowledge of David's criminal activities, while creating psychological pressure that led him to make additional incriminating statements. David's responses provided valuable evidence for legal proceedings, while also revealing information about his criminal network that would support broader law enforcement investigation. Elena's management of the evidence presentation demonstrated her successful application of business presentation skills to criminal investigation and legal preparation. Her systematic approach to information organization and strategic revelation created optimal conditions for gathering additional evidence, while maintaining her psychological advantages throughout the confrontation. The evidence presentation also revealed David's sophisticated understanding of criminal techniques and his systematic approach to exploiting relationships for financial gain. This information would prove valuable for developing criminal profiles and prevention strategies that could protect other potential victims from similar criminal schemes. Elena's evidence presentation established the foundation for all subsequent legal proceedings, by creating comprehensive documentation of David's criminal activities and his responses to being confronted with evidence of his crime. The systematic approach to evidence revelation would provide prosecutors with powerful tools for achieving successful convictions, while also supporting Elena's civil litigation for financial recovery. As David recognized the comprehensive nature of Elena's evidence and the serious legal consequences he faced, his responses evolved from denial and justification to more sophisticated countermeasures designed to minimize his criminal exposure while attempting to regain some measure of control over the situation. Elena's systematic preparation enabled her to anticipate and effectively counter each of David's strategic responses. David's first sophisticated countermeasure involved attempting to characterize his criminal activities as business decisions that Elena had implicitly approved through her failure to monitor their household finances more closely. He claimed that Elena's focus on her consulting business had created a situation where he was forced to make independent financial decisions, including the sale of the ring, to address immediate cash flow problems that Elena had been too busy to recognize. Elena's response to David's attempt to shift responsibility involved presenting detailed evidence that contradicted his claims about financial necessity and Elena's alleged negligence. She revealed documentation showing that their household finances were stable, that David had access to legitimate credit sources if he had faced genuine financial pressure, and that Elena had regularly attempted to discuss their financial situation with David throughout their marriage. David's recognition that his attempts to shift responsibility were unsuccessful led him to employ more aggressive countermeasures, including threats about the potential consequences of Elena's legal action for her professional reputation and personal safety. He suggested that pursuing criminal charges against him would result in negative publicity that could damage Elena's consulting business and that his criminal associates might retaliate against Elena if he faced serious legal consequences. Elena's response to David's threats demonstrated her thorough preparation and her understanding of intimidation tactics commonly employed by criminals facing exposure. She calmly informed David that she had already implemented comprehensive security measures, that law enforcement agencies were aware of his criminal associates, and that his threats constituted additional criminal behavior that would strengthen the case against him. David's next countermeasure involved attempting to negotiate a private resolution that would avoid criminal prosecution in exchange for financial restitution and his agreement to end their marriage quietly. He offered to return the ring, compensate Elena for her financial losses, and agree to a divorce settlement that would give Elena favorable terms if she would agree not to cooperate with criminal investigations or civil proceedings against his criminal associate. Elena's response to David's negotiation attempts reflected her understanding that accepting private settlement would prevent justice and would leave other victims vulnerable to continued criminal exploitation. She informed David that criminal prosecution was not subject to private negotiation and that her cooperation with law enforcement was not contingent on her personal financial recovery. This response demonstrated Elena's commitment to justice that extended beyond her personal interest. David's recognition that Elena would not accept private settlement led him to attempt more desperate countermeasures, including claims that he possessed compromising information about Elena's business practices that he would reveal if she pursued legal action against him. He suggested that Elena's consulting business involved questionable practices that could result in regulatory investigations and professional sanctions if exposed publicly. Elena's response to David's blackmail attempts involved challenging him to present any evidence supporting his claims while simultaneously documenting his threats for presentation to law enforcement agencies. Elena's confidence in responding to these threats reflected her commitment to ethical business practices and her understanding that David's claims were desperate fabrications designed to create leverage through intimidation. David's final strategic countermeasure involved attempting to manipulate Elena's emotions by expressing what appeared to be genuine remorse and pleading for an opportunity to rebuild their marriage through counseling and restitution. He claimed that his criminal behavior had been driven by psychological problems that could be addressed through therapy, and that he was committed to making amends for his actions if Elena would give him another chance. Elena's response to David's emotional manipulation demonstrated her psychological preparation and her clear understanding of her objectives in the confrontation. She acknowledged David's statements while making clear that criminal behavior required legal consequences, regardless of personal remorse, and that their marriage could not continue regardless of David's expressed willingness to change his behavior. Throughout David's various countermeasures, Elena maintained her strategic focus and psychological composure while gathering additional evidence that would support criminal prosecution and civil litigation. David's responses provided valuable information about his criminal network, his understanding of legal procedures, and his continued willingness to engage in threatening and manipulative behavior, even when confronted with overwhelming evidence of his crime. Elena's successful management of David's countermeasures demonstrated her transformation from victim to prosecutor through systematic preparation and professional expertise. Her ability to anticipate and effectively respond to sophisticated manipulation tactics reflected her business experience with difficult negotiations, while also demonstrating her psychological resilience and moral clarity. The confrontation sequence established Elena's complete strategic dominance over David, while providing comprehensive documentation of his criminal behavior and his continued criminality, even when facing potential prosecution. David's responses during the confrontation would provide prosecutors with powerful evidence for achieving successful convictions, while also supporting Elena's civil litigation for financial recovery. Elena's management of the confrontation demonstrated that professional competence and systematic preparation could provide individuals with the tools necessary to confront sophisticated criminal behavior and ensure that justice prevailed over manipulation and intimidation. Her success in maintaining strategic control throughout the encounter reflected the same qualities that had made her professionally successful and would ultimately lead to David's conviction and appropriate punishment. The confrontation with David produced substantial additional evidence that significantly strengthened Elena's case, while also providing law enforcement agencies with valuable intelligence about the broader criminal network. Elena's systematic approach to documenting the encounter and coordinating with legal authorities demonstrated her continued application of business project management skills to criminal justice objectives. The audio and video recordings of Elena's confrontation with David captured numerous incriminating statements that would prove valuable for criminal prosecution. David's admissions about selling the ring, filing fraudulent insurance claims, and coordinating with criminal associates provided prosecutors with direct evidence of multiple felonies. His threats against Elena and his attempts at emotional manipulation would support additional charges related to intimidation and obstruction of justice. Elena's immediate coordination with her attorney Jennifer Martinez ensured that the confrontation evidence was properly preserved and integrated into the broader legal strategy. Jennifer's analysis of David's statements during the confrontation revealed several admissions that would be particularly valuable for criminal prosecution, including his acknowledgement of premeditation in stealing the ring, and his detailed knowledge of criminal techniques and procedures. The confrontation evidence also provided federal prosecutors with valuable intelligence about David's criminal network that supported their broader investigation into interstate fraud and criminal conspiracy. David's statements about Marcus Webb, Sandra Martinez, and other criminal associates
revealed operational details that would help law enforcement agencies build cases against multiple defendants while also identifying additional victims of the criminal enterprise. Elena's coordination with law enforcement agencies following the confrontation resulted in accelerated timelines for criminal charges and asset seizure procedures. The additional evidence provided by the confrontation gave prosecutors confidence that they possessed sufficient evidence for successful prosecution, leading to immediate action to prevent David from fleeing the jurisdiction or destroying additional evidence. The confrontation results also strengthened Elena's civil litigation position by providing clear documentation of David's criminal intent and his systematic deception throughout their marriage. David's admissions about his criminal planning and his lack of remorse would support substantial damage awards that would compensate Elena for her financial losses while also punishing David for his criminal behavior. Elena's documentation of David's threats and intimidation attempts during the confrontation provided law enforcement agencies with evidence supporting additional criminal charges that would increase David's potential prison sentence. The threats also demonstrated David's continued dangerousness and supported arguments for denying him bail or other forms of pretrial release. The confrontation evidence revealed important information about David's financial holdings and criminal proceeds that would support asset seizure and recovery procedures. His statements about hidden accounts, criminal income, and planned asset transfers provided forensic accountants with leads that would help identify and recover stolen funds, while also preventing David from concealing assets that could be used to compensate victims. Elena's systematic approach to coordinating the confrontation results with multiple legal and law enforcement agencies demonstrated her continued effectiveness as a victim advocate and prosecutor. Her ability to maintain focus on justice objectives while managing complex coordination requirements reflected her business experience with multi-stakeholder project management and strategic. The confrontation documentation also provided valuable evidence for insurance company investigation that would support Elena's recovery of the ring's full appraised value through insurance claims. David's admissions about the fraudulent nature of his theft report and his coordination with criminal associates would strengthen Elena's position in insurance proceedings, while also supporting criminal charges against the insurance adjuster who had facilitated the fraud. Elena's management of the confrontation results demonstrated her successful transformation from victim to prosecutor through systematic preparation and professional expertise. The additional evidence gathered through the strategic confrontation significantly enhanced the likelihood of successful criminal prosecution and substantial civil recovery, while also contributing to broader law enforcement efforts to combat sophisticated criminal enterprises. The confrontation sequence established Elena's complete investigative and strategic dominance over David, while providing comprehensive documentation that would support all subsequent legal proceedings. Elena's systematic approach to evidence gathering and legal coordination reflected the same qualities that had made her professionally successful and demonstrated that business competence could provide powerful tools for achieving justice and protecting other potential victims from criminal exploitation. Elena's comprehensive evidence package triggered an immediate and coordinated response from multiple law enforcement agencies that recognized the sophisticated nature of David's criminal enterprise and its interstate implications. The Federal Bureau of Investigation assumed primary coordination responsibility for the case due to the interstate transportation of stolen goods, wire fraud violations, and the organized nature of the criminal network that Elena's investigation had exposed. Special Agent Catherine Morrison, a seasoned investigator specializing in organized fraud schemes, was assigned as the lead federal coordinator for the investigation. Agent Morrison's extensive experience with complex financial crimes and multi-jurisdictional criminal enterprises expertise necessary to build comprehensive cases against all participants in David's criminal network, while ensuring that Elena's evidence was properly integrated into the broader federal investigation. The federal response reflected the law enforcement community's recognition that Elena's systematic investigation had uncovered criminal activities that extended far beyond simple theft and insurance fraud. Agent Morrison's initial analysis of Elena's evidence revealed patterns of criminal behavior that suggested David's network had been operating for several years and had victimized numerous individuals across multiple states. The sophisticated nature of the criminal operations warranted federal resources and coordination that could address the full scope of the criminal enterprise. Elena's coordination with federal investigators demonstrated her continued application of business project management skills to criminal justice objectives. Her systematic organization of evidence and her detailed documentation of investigative procedures facilitated the federal investigation, while also ensuring that her personal interests in criminal prosecution and civil recovery remained protected throughout the broader law enforcement response. The federal investigation team included specialists in financial crimes, digital forensics, organized crime, and victim advocacy, who brought sophisticated investigative capabilities to bear on David's criminal network. Elena's evidence provided the foundation for federal search warrants, asset seizure orders, and surveillance operations that would ultimately expose the full extent of the criminal enterprise while protecting other potential victims from continued exploitation. Agent Morrison's investigation strategy emphasized simultaneous action against all known participants in David's criminal network to prevent coordination of defensive responses or destruction of evidence. The federal coordination included law enforcement agencies in Nevada, Colorado, California, and other states where network participants had been identified through Elena's investigation and subsequent federal intelligence gathering. Elena's cooperation with federal investigators required her to balance her personal interests in achieving justice against David with broader law enforcement objectives that included protecting ongoing investigation and ensuring comprehensive prosecution of all criminal network participants. Her business experience with managing complex stakeholder relationships enabled her to navigate these competing interests while maintaining focus on her primary objectives of criminal prosecution and civil recovery. The federal investigation revealed that Elena's systematic evidence gathering had provided law enforcement agencies with the most comprehensive intelligence ever assembled about sophisticated jewelry theft and resale operations in the southwestern United States. Agent Morrison acknowledged that Elena's professional investigative approach had accelerated the federal investigation timeline by months while also providing evidence quality that exceeded standard law enforcement capability. Federal investigators implemented comprehensive surveillance operations targeting David, Marcus Webb, Sandra Martinez, and other criminal network participants identified through Elena's investigation. The surveillance operations provided real-time intelligence about continuing criminal activities while also gathering evidence that would support additional criminal charges and asset seizure procedures. Elena's coordination with federal investigators also included her participation in controlled communications with David that were designed to gather additional evidence about criminal network operations and planned criminal activity. Elena's business communication skills and her psychological preparation enabled her to conduct these controlled interactions effectively while maintaining her personal safety and protecting the integrity of the federal investigation. The federal response demonstrated the law enforcement community's commitment to comprehensive prosecution of sophisticated criminal enterprises that victimize individuals through systematic deception and fraud. Elena's case became a model for victim-initiated investigations that could provide law enforcement agencies with powerful tools for combating organized crime while also ensuring appropriate justice for individual victims. Agent Morrison's investigation strategy included extensive coordination with state and local law enforcement agencies in jurisdictions where criminal network participants had been identified. This coordination ensured that state-level criminal charges would complement federal prosecution while also addressing local law enforcement interests in protecting their communities from organized criminal activity. The federal investigation also included coordination with insurance companies and regulatory agencies that had been victimized by David's criminal network. Lena's evidence provided these organizations with comprehensive intelligence about fraud schemes while also supporting their internal investigations and regulatory enforcement actions against criminal network participants. Lena's experience with federal law enforcement coordination provided her with valuable insights into the criminal justice system that would serve her well throughout the extended legal proceedings ahead. Her business background in managing complex regulatory environments translated effectively to navigating federal law enforcement procedures while maintaining focus on her personal objectives. Lena's emergence as a recognized expert in fraud detection and victim advocacy created significant demand for educational programs that could help individuals and organizations recognize and prevent sophisticated criminal schemes. Her systematic approach to developing comprehensive fraud prevention education reflected her commitment to transforming personal experience into practical resources that would protect others from the systematic exploitation she had endured through David's criminal network operation.
The educational framework development began with extensive research into existing fraud prevention resources to identify gaps and opportunities for enhancement that would address the sophisticated manipulation techniques employed by contemporary criminal organizations. Alina's analysis revealed that most available educational materials focused on basic financial fraud prevention without addressing the psychological manipulation and relationship exploitation techniques that characterized the most successful criminal schemes. Alina's educational program design incorporated comprehensive analysis of criminal psychology and manipulation tactics based on her investigation experience and coordination with law enforcement professionals who specialized in organized fraud. The program addressed the systematic approaches that criminals employed to identify vulnerable targets, develop emotional relationships that provided access to valuable assets, and execute theft and fraud, while maintaining victim trust and cooperation. The fraud prevention education framework included detailed modules addressing digital security vulnerabilities that enabled criminals to research potential victims and coordinate sophisticated schemes through electronic communication and social media platforms. Alina's experience with digital forensics investigation provided practical insights into protective measures that individuals could implement to reduce their vulnerability to criminal targeting and systematic exploitation. Alina's educational approach addressed the intersection of romance, fraud, and financial exploitation through comprehensive analysis of relationship dynamics that criminals exploited to gain victim trust and access to valuable assets. The program provided practical guidance for recognizing manipulation tactics while maintaining capacity for healthy relationships and appropriate trust in legitimate personal and professional contexts. The educational framework development included coordination with mental health professionals specialized in psychological manipulation and trauma recovery to ensure that fraud prevention education addressed both practical security measures and psychological resilience, building that would help individuals maintain appropriate skepticism without developing counterproductive paranoia, social isolation. Alina's program design incorporated case study analysis that illustrated criminal techniques and victim responses through real examples while protecting victim privacy and avoiding sensationalism that might undermine educational objectives. Her business expertise and curriculum development enabled her to create compelling educational content that maintained audience engagement while delivering practical knowledge and actionable guidance. The comprehensive fraud prevention education addressed organizational vulnerabilities that enabled employee exploitation and internal fraud schemes through analysis of hiring practices, background verification procedure and ongoing monitoring systems that could detect potential criminal infiltration of business operations. Alina's consulting experience provided valuable insights into practical implementation of organizational security measures. Alina's educational framework included specialized components addressing vulnerable populations, including elderly individuals, recent immigrants, and others who might face heightened risk of criminal targeting due to social isolation, limited familiarity with American legal and financial system, or other factors that criminals commonly exploited in victim selection and manipulation strategies. The program development incorporated coordination with law enforcement agencies and regulatory organizations to ensure that educational content remained current with evolving criminal techniques, legal requirements, while providing appropriate guidance for victim reporting and law enforcement cooperation that would maximize the effectiveness of criminal prosecution and victim recovery efforts. Alina's educational approach addressed technology-enabled fraud, including social media manipulation, online dating exploitation, and cybersecurity threats that provided criminals with sophisticated tools for victim research and relationship development. The program provided practical guidance for maintaining appropriate online security while preserving opportunities for legitimate social and professional networking. The fraud prevention education framework included comprehensive discussion of legal resources and victim advocacy services that would support individuals who had been targeted by criminal schemes. Alina's experience with federal prosecution and civil litigation provided valuable insights into legal procedures and victim rights that would help others navigate complex legal challenges effectively. Alina's program design addressed financial protection strategies, including asset diversification, account monitoring, and legal structures that could provide enhanced security against criminal targeting while maintaining appropriate access to investment opportunities and financial planning resources. Her wealth management experience provided practical guidance for implementing sophisticated protection measures. The educational framework development reflected Alina's commitment to systematic knowledge transfer that would multiply the impact of her investigation experience by providing other potential victims with practical tools for recognition and prevention of sophisticated criminal schemes. Her transformation from victim to educator demonstrated the positive outcomes that could result from systematic response to criminal victimization through comprehensive preparation and strategic action. Alina's recognition as a fraud prevention expert generated significant demand for speaking engagements at professional conferences, educational institutions, and industry events, where her expertise could contribute to awareness and prevention efforts while establishing her thought leadership platform within relevant professional communities. Her systematic approach to speaking engagement development reflected her commitment to maximizing educational impact while building professional recognition and business development opportunities. The speaking engagement program strategy began with comprehensive analysis of target audiences and optimal venues for sharing Alina's expertise in fraud detection and victim advocacy. Her business experience with market analysis enabled her to identify professional organization, industry conferences, and educational institutions where her message would reach individuals and organizations most likely to benefit from fraud prevention education and most capable of implementing systematic protective measures. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.